Welcome to episode 333. That's triple threes of the Shared Security Podcast. And this week we're going to be talking about the massive Ticketmaster breach that could potentially expose the data of over 500 million Ticketmaster customers. Yes. So that number is 560 million.
That's a big one.
That is a big one. And if that wasn't enough pain for Ticketmaster, their parent company, LiveNation, is also being investigated for being a monopoly in the United States.
Oh, wow.
So that's fun.
That's just business, right?
Yeah, that's just typical business. Yeah.
Oh.
And then in our Where Much segment, Scott is going to talk about the rise in work from home schemes. So this is something that we saw a lot of during the pandemic, but it's back now.
Yeah, I have a theory about it. So
good. What's old is new again.
Exactly,
right, Scott?
exactly. Yeah.
But first thing I want to mention is that our episode on Microsoft's new recall feature really took off.
Yeah, and I was sad that I wasn't a part of it. So maybe it's because I wasn't a part of it. Who knows?
That's the reason. No, definitely not the reason. But we have well over 2,400 views that episode on YouTube and 18 comments. And some of those comments are, well, I'll just say interesting.
Okay.
Most people are expressing their concerns about the privacy issues around recall and how Microsoft has implemented them. There's some people that actually want the technology. I'd say that those people are in the minority, but we'll link this in the show notes. Definitely check it out. Maybe provide your own opinion. It's probably one of the most spirited discussions that we've had.
Yeah, and I'm kind of
channel,
intrigued because I haven't had a chance to go look at the comments, but can you give us like a sense of what like the most sort of eye-opening comments are about, at least?
I'll just say they're around privacy and some things around encryption and how Microsoft is, or how maybe some people think Microsoft is attempting to secure the information within recall, which is basically screenshots of everything on your desktop every couple seconds. But on that topic, in the show notes, we're going to link a really good Twitter account that I want everybody to check out. His name is Kevin Beaumont. He goes by Gossy the Dog on Twitter. And he's posted a lot of really good factual research about recall that I think everybody should really take some time to check out. I mean, the short of it is bad. And the way that Microsoft is implementing that is just they're not doing it in a really good way. So
well, it's good that we're getting some visibility, just soaking some conversation, all that.
We'll let everybody check that out.
Perfect.
So let's get into our first story, which is Ticketmaster. So there's been a big breach. Ticketmaster is not giving a lot of data about what happened, but the hacking group called Shiny Hunters has claimed in a hacker forum that they have over 500 million Ticketmaster customers' data for sale. LiveNation, which is the company that owns Ticketmaster, they have confirmed the breach, but they're not providing a whole lot of details. They did state that the breach involved some unauthorized activity from a third-party cloud database provider called Snowflake. And the Snowflake posted a thing on their support forum basically saying that they believe it was due to poor customer configuration and, drumroll please, single-factor authentication.
Oh my God. So when they say due to poor customer configuration, assuming it's third-party, it's not part of their ownership structure or corporate structure, aren't they like pointing the finger back at Ticketmaster?
It almost feels like that, right?
Yeah,
it almost feels like they're blaming the customer.
Yeah, in my younger days, I've tried doing that before, and that doesn't usually end well.
Well, I mean, we've had this debate, right? Now, I don't know if they're necessarily blaming their customer because maybe this is just a company that, you configure it a certain way, therefore you kind of take the responsibility because there's lots of different use cases. I mean, you could make the argument that you should just be enabling two-factor authentication across the board for everything. But if they give you the option of not enabling it, well, you're kind of at fault.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things here I would say, like certainly, as you pointed out, the single factor authentication here is significant, right? And I think you see that quite often in, I guess I would call it, it just sort of came to me was like calling them second tier reputable vendors, right? Like the top tier guys, Amazon and, Costco or Walmart or, the big guys who do a lot of, I guess, volume over time and do a lot of transactions. They seem to typically have pretty good practices, but I think there's a second tier of vendors online that don't always do this stuff, right? And, but even though we say use reputable vendors, well, Ticketmaster is fairly reputable. How do we know they're not, But when you see that they're not using two-factor authentication, some people say, well, it's just tickets, right? I mean, not a big deal. And it's you're paying for tickets with a credit card. And if the card gets abused, then charges can be reversed. So, it's not all that, critical, but it's a big inconvenience for a lot of people. And you could imagine a class action suit probably coming out of this, right? And I can see, LiveNation may feel, they said there's no expected significant financial impact, but unless something like that does come at them, right, then it could be big. But one thing I would say, just as a tip for people, like I still never put my credit card, when they have that option to check to store for future use, I never check that. I never let sites store my card information. And it's kind of for this reason, right? As reputable as some companies are, you just never know when they're going to get hacked.
Yeah, that's true. And I wonder too, what reputational damage, is that even a factor here? Because, I mean, LiveNation right now is under a lot of scrutiny because of the monopoly thing. And this definitely doesn't help, right? That case. But I don't know. Like, it is an interesting debate that you can have about, do data breaches matter to people, like consumers, like outside of the inconvenience of having to get a new credit card, right? But it'd be interesting because, all of us in cybersecurity, we're on the soapbox, right? And it's bad, like every time a big breach like this happens, but you wonder, like, what is the customer sentiment about data breaches? Like, have they just all gotten used to it and it's just no big deal anymore?
Well, I think to some extent, it sort of goes back to what I said. Like some of those sites, you kind of don't feel like it's a huge deal. And I think one way you can look at it is what information have they been collecting about you that could be exposed and could be damaging, right? I mean, ticket seller is, mostly just payment information, not too much else. But imagine if they were collecting a whole lot of other personal information and that could be exposed. So a data breach that does affect, personal health information and other things, I think people still care about those.
Yeah. I guess it depends on the type of breach, right? Well, it'd be interesting. And, I think the other thing, just to finish this story, is you got to be on the lookout for phishing emails, right? Because this is a 500 million people.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a lot of phishing activity that is most likely going to come out of this if this data is sold or,
And it's probably a good platform for phishing, in terms of the pretext, right? Because if they bought stuff on Ticketmaster, you could probably guess some of the things, maybe they're, big on entertainment and you can put something together that will attract them or get them to, so it's good.
And they're a monopoly, potentially. So, they have a stranglehold on the entertainment industry. So they actually have a captive audience.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Scott, are you ready for Kevin's favorite segment? Even though he isn't here, we're gonna say it.
Aware much? Yes, Tom. Well, one thing that seems to go in cycles is the frequency of job recruiting scams, right? We've covered this, I think, probably several times over the last 15 years we've been doing this podcast.
Oh my gosh.
And, I think in this case, attackers have learned that they can entice a lot of people with work from home opportunities, right? We saw it big during the pandemic because there was just so many new things happening. And certainly a lot of people got laid off during the pandemic. And so it was probably a good time to target people who were unemployed as an attacker. But, things have kind of reached an equilibrium, but there's still a lot of people working from home and people who are unemployed or who are just, they prefer not to have to work in the office. They've been forced back into the office and now, hey, you know what? I could work from home and have a much easier life. So I think it's something that attackers have probably figured out, let's ride this one for a while. But the FBI is actually warning job seekers about scammers who pose as businesses or recruiters to hire work from home staff. And interestingly, the supposed hiring companies in this case are often using convoluted payment schedules or structures so that, they may be making payroll payments with cryptocurrencies. So if you're not yet into crypto, don't rush out and create an account just because the company says you need to have it for them to hire you. That could end up badly, right? So, they might even require upfront payment. This is not new, but that's kind of something we want to remind people about. You shouldn't have to pay to get a job interview or, a job offer. And if they don't ask for references, you might think that's great, but it's also a red flag because any decent employer is probably going to ask for references. But really, any job offer that comes without you making an application, so it's just, out of the blue, somebody's offering you a job, that really should be considered to be suspect. So it's the old adage, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. But anyway, if you find something, that looks suspicious like this, the FBI wants you to report it to their Internet Crime Complaint Center. So any thoughts on that, Tom?
Yeah. I mean, I just find it fascinating that, these things are coming back from the pandemic because, I think there's just a lot of people looking for jobs.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the economy, at least in the US, it seems to be kind of slowly coming back. And I think it's just taking advantage of people that are looking for those jobs and maybe not quite thinking about those red flags like you had mentioned, because, wow, this seems like a great opportunity. I'm going to just sign up or not think about, I don't know, sending cryptocurrency. I there's some things that I could be like, that just seems like, I don't know who could fall for this. But again, some people just aren't educated on scams like these. And that's why we need to spread the word out. And one of the things like we talk about is like talking to your family and friends about these things, so then they can also talk about it to others, and hopefully somebody out there that might be a victim of one of these scams will, see the red flag through kind of that education, right?
Yeah. So anyway, it's a good public service announcement, I guess, from our point to let people know what to watch out for this stuff. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. So. But this episode of Aware Much is brought to you by ClickArmor, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say you should really use the right tools to build your security culture. And you might say, well, how are we not using the right tools right now? I like to use this analogy. So there's the old adage, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? But my spin on that in a security awareness sense is when the only thing you have for measuring employee vulnerability is live phishing simulations, then every employee looks like a target. So
I like that.
When that's the way you view your employees or you're perceived to view them, then they start to notice and they lose trust in the IT team. So while phishing simulations might seem like a good way to measure employee proficiency at spotting phishing threats, there's actually a better set of tools for assessing staff resilience before you start to target them with live tests. So through ClickArmor's interactive, immersive exercises, people get to practice facing phishing and social engineering threats in a safe environment. In fact, you can test people on a lot more things than just phishing awareness when you use ClickArmor's gamified modular tools. So they can build their confidence and be much more prepared for cyber attacks in the real world. And if you want to see how ClickArmor works, just visit www.clickarmor.ca and ask for a demo. So that's it for this installment of All Together Now. Aware Much?
Aware Much? I think that's the first time we had a duet,
I
Scott.
think so. We got to change it up a bit once in a while.
I would say we are not professionals in the music sense, so we will not be quitting our day jobs and becoming musicians.
Nobody's hiring us and putting the tickets on LiveNation, that's for sure.
Yeah, thank goodness. Well, I think that's all we have time for this week, Scott. And I think we'll have Kevin back next week to add to the fun.
Nice.
Which is always good.
Absolutely.
So until next time, thanks for listening, everyone. And stay safe, stay secure, and stay private. Thanks for watching or listening to this episode. Be sure to subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts, follow us on X @SharedSec, and help support the podcast by joining our Patreon to get ad-free episodes, bonus content, and many more exclusive supporter-only benefits. Visit sharedsecurity.net/supporter for more details.